This week, solar takes on the energy crisis, self-charging gadgets. How green is your wardrobe? We've got the scores on the drawers. And we do a deep dive into the deserts of Dune.
Solar power is the Earth's most abundant energy source. And today that goes far beyond simply plonking panels on rooftops. We keep seeing scientists develop new ways to make the technology more flexible, more powerful, and more useful.
This factory in Stockholm is making ultra-thin solar cells that don't even need sunlight to harvest energy. The idea is that they can be used outside or inside your home to power products. I'll be showing you later on what that means for various devices, but first here's Dan Simmons, who's been looking at how solar could help the energy price crisis.
Although most of us like the idea of clean energy, so far we've not been persuaded. Maybe it's because we don't own our own roof, or it's the upfront costs. Maybe we're thinking of moving and we feel we can't take solar panels with us, or just those glaring large slabs isn't quite the look we're after. So I've been to the homes of two British startups who want you to look again. This is the Solivus Arc. Its curves are wrapped in an organic solar film, which doesn't contain any toxic substances nor rare earth materials that could require mining, and so it has a much smaller carbon footprint than traditional panels. And that's not all.
Now, the Arc is designed to capture sunlight throughout more of the day, and that's partly because it's got 5 surfaces on which to harvest energy, and this curved design means that it usually has a sweet spot, which is very useful at the start and the end of the day in particular. I think it looks quite futuristic, and if solar sculptures like this were to catch on, I can see them being seen as a sort of carbon neutral status symbol. Something for the neighbours perhaps to gawk at.
I don't like the look of conventional solar panels. I just don't like them. So I thought, well, I want to get the home energy independent, but how can I do it with avoiding solar panels? So started looking into new solar technology that was out there.
This is Solivus's testing yard in Kent, where they've been adapting the shape of the sculpture to maximise efficiency. The multi-layered solar film used is provided by German firm Heliotech.
These solar panels are made up of 3 distinct layers at the moment, and the top layer will capture the high energy light, the middle layer will capture the sort of visible light, and then the bottom layer captures more of the infrared, more of the heat. So maximum efficiency for a conventional solar panel is about 33%. Whereas for this technology, it's tunable, and they can layer it with, in theory, as many layers as they want to choose different parts of the spectrum and capture overall more light coming in.
Despite this sunny outlook, today this solar film is only 8% efficient, with a 10% version expected later this year. Now, last year that may have been a problem. High initial costs have dogged solar as a cost-effective option. Until the maths changed. Driven by supply issues and fresh demand from a world recovering from a global pandemic, energy prices are surging.
More than 50% in a matter of minutes.
And that was before many Western nations imposed sanctions on Russia's gas and oil following its invasion of Ukraine. With the UK's energy price cap lifting next week, many household bills are about to soar. From around 18 pence per kilowatt hour last year, the variable rate of electricity is expected to jump to more than 26 pence by the autumn, and at least 32 pence if you want to fix your prices for a year or more, depending on where you live in the UK. At £3,500, the Arc isn't cheap, but it is guaranteed for 20 years. Its film panels, which are upgradable, are expected to produce an average of 1,000 kilowatt hours per year by the end of 2022.
When it becomes 1,000 kilowatt hours a year, in the UK you're looking at about 21 pence per kilowatt hour. That amount of energy will be locked in at that 21 pence for 20 years, and after that it's free, obviously.
Let's be clear, one of these isn't enough to power a home, even one that uses gas or oil for heating. In theory, you'd need at least one for every bedroom you have. And if you don't have an expensive battery to store any surplus energy as it's captured, you'll end up feeding it back to the grid for a fraction of the market price. One alternative is that you can plug the Arc directly into your electric car if you have one. I found another solar entrepreneur in London's Notting Hill. This prototype features a unique, cost-effective way to attach solar film to regular blinds, so owners of flats and garages can take advantage too.
Because to date, solar power has been for the rich, and there's not been a system or a product in place where it can go on any building. My company's aim is all around the democratization of solar. So any window can now become a solar panel.
David's applied for a patent for his creation and will take it first to Spain, where these types of blinds are more common. Installations begin later this year. And he's also in talks with a London authority, which wants to fit them to council flats.
So for this size of window, it'll generate about 10 to 15% of your energy needs, and this is a 3-bedroom house. So between a hot summer or a cool winter, the amount of energy you could generate would be probably about 10 to 15% less during winter compared to summer.
So not much difference?
No, not that much, no. And with this new solar film, it generates energy in cloudier climates compared to silicon panels.
Another good thing about solar film is that it's scalable.
Some places have more roof space than others, of course. So for reasons of cost savings as well as the environment, this rugby stadium has decided now is the time to cover its stands in the new lightweight solar film.
There's an estimated 2.5 billion square metres of south-facing commercial roof space in the UK, and a lot of it wouldn't have enough strength to support weighty traditional solar panels.
For the panels, we will pay 15 pence per kilowatt hour. That is half or less than half of what the current cost of a kilowatt hour of electricity is, so that's a significant saving for us. If you've got a big roof or a big area of land, I don't know why you wouldn't consider this as a viable option. I mean, it uses an asset that you can't really use for any other purpose, it saves you money, and it's good for the planet.
Increasingly, these new types of flexible solar panels are making solar more accessible for people. They don't replace traditional panels, which will be ideal for some. And there are other options like solar tiles out there too. But solar film is now getting more efficient and importantly cheaper, just as grid prices are going through the roof. So both practically and financially now, solar could be coming home.
Hello and welcome to the Week in Tech. It was the week the world passed 1 terawatt of solar installations, theoretically enough to power the entirety of Europe. Globy, a firm providing an alternative to satellite imagery by using drones, has just broken a Guinness World Record for collating the largest digital album of aerial photography. And the UK's National Fraud Reporting Centre Action Fraud is warning about fake emails pretending to raise money for victims of the war in Ukraine. However, Fortnite players across the world have been raising millions of dollars for Ukrainian charities. Developer Epic Games says it has raised $50 million so far from in-game purchases. Microsoft has confirmed it was breached by the Lapsus hacking group after source code from Bing, Bing Maps and Cortana was leaked. Microsoft said that a single employee's account was compromised by the hacking group, but added no customer code or data was compromised. And finally, the Volta Zero electric truck has completed its cold weather testing programme, driving one step closer to series production at the end of the year. Engineers focused on how the 16-tonne truck performs under harsh conditions. No, not rush hour traffic. Instead, temperatures as low as minus 30 degrees Celsius. It's coldly going where no truck has gone before.
We know that fashion can hurt the earth. Its production makes up 10% of humanity's carbon emissions, dries up water sources and pollutes rivers and streams. But all products, whether they come from farms, labs or factories, take their toll, with hidden impacts in materials, manufacturing and more.
Frankly, even with the best of intentions, it can be really hard to know which items that you want to buy are better for the planet. Take these two shirts, for example. They look pretty similar, and this one might be made from more sustainable materials, but if it's been flown halfway around the world to get to you, whereas this one's been made locally, how do you know which one to choose? Wouldn't it be nice if you could maybe scan the products to see what's good and what's bad?
Here in the Netherlands, one company is trying to make the environmental impact of products more transparent.
The idea is that you scan the QR code attached to the product and you get a score out of 100. This shirt here, 66 out of 100, okay. This shirt over here, which does look pretty much the same, 70 out of 100, okay. Slightly better, I think I'll have that one.
Dayrise's co-founder Austin Sims explained that this one score actually consists of 5 sub-scores, assessing things like carbon emissions, materials and recyclability, and also the impact on the people creating it.
68 out of 100 for your lavender and ylang wax melts.
How necessary a product actually is also gets a score.
What is an example of a product that has no purpose?
A product that scores low on purpose would be like an electric pepper grinder.
500 fashion, home and beauty brands have already been signed up, and this system actually lends itself to online shopping where scores can be easily displayed next to the products. The idea is that anything and everything could eventually have this standardised label. Now, there is already an industry standard for working out environmental impact. It's called a life cycle assessment, but this requires brands to dig deep into their data, a lengthy, expensive process that few companies bother to do.
No brand has all the information that we need to actually understand the impact of the product. So if you're missing information about certain areas of your sourcing or manufacturing or distribution, we call upon 31 different databases.
Eventually, Dayrise will have one big database of the environmental impact of all parts of a production process, with AI being used to estimate any unknowns. And this will bring calculation times down from months to minutes.
If you come in with your t-shirt and say that it was made of organic cotton that was produced in Sri Lanka, and then we knew where it was produced, and then we knew where it went to be actually manufactured, and then where it went to be sold. That's enough for us to fill in the blanks.
So it sounds like there's still a little bit of guesswork here, because if you don't know exactly how I've shipped my cotton from A to B, I could be doing it in a great way or I could be doing it in a not great way.
It actually then searches for the information itself and builds on itself and gets smarter over time. And we've already scored tens of thousands of products to actually that machine's working really well. And if we don't have the actual information from the algorithm, then we have enough databases that we can pull the industry average. So you still get a really accurate score.
Dayrise says it can produce results that are 80% accurate, and a future where it could devise a score without any information or even consent from brands could be just years away. A detailed breakdown of harm could even help the worst offenders to improve.
You see that the wool is actually quite high in impact, so you can look at either different materials or different areas where you can source that wool from. So by plane, by truck, by ship, it actually the different impacts. So you can obviously see here there's a lot of impact by travelling by train, so you can try and do that a different way.
So what you're doing is quite clever, because instead of just effectively possibly naming and shaming brands which don't do very well, you're providing them with lots of information.
It's a consultative service, so we actually try and show the brands how they can, what are things that they can do.
The deal would be that a brand has to display all 5 of its scores rather than just cherry-picking the one that highlights their strengths. But opinion on what's most important will vary between customers, and also the science behind the scores will evolve too, meaning that a product score might suddenly change as sentiment shifts.
One benefit of this might be that brands start competing with each other to get better circularity scores, better livelihood and well-being scores.
That's the aim, obviously. I think it creates that healthy level of competition that we want.
So there you go, Laura. In the future, you could know exactly how green your entire outfit was.
I don't actually have to wear green though, do I?
No, you keep rocking the blue and I'll keep rocking the grey, in more ways than one.
Meanwhile, here's a way of making your gadgets greener by using sustainable energy, something this solar cell factory in Sweden is taking to the next level. This machine is printing custom nano ink onto solar panels, and they don't even need the sun to charge.
We have developed our own nano inks, and in this machine we print that ink on a proprietary substrate.
How is the end result and the usage of it different to other solar cells?
It actually harvests all kinds of light. It's sort of like artificial photosynthesis. So it will work under any light condition. LED, normal light bulbs, even in the shade, any kind of light.
You're sort of using electricity, but I guess it's just electricity that was being used anyway.
We're recycling light.
The extra efficiency means that those silver strips that usually run through solar panels are no longer needed, freeing up new design ideas.
And this allows us to have free-form printing. So we can print a solar cell for you in the shape of a circle or a triangle or...
So you can put on any device shaped like the device?
Exactly.
These cells have been shaped to fit a headphone band, and this robot is responsible for squirting electrolytes on them to allow conduction.
It looks like it's going to drip bits in between, but it's actually doing it very precisely.
It's more efficient and predictable, and for sure it doesn't make any mistakes.
The final step is lamination to give the cells custom textures.
And into the press it goes.
And here's the finished product, a 1.3mm thick solar cell. Giovanni, tell me about the prototypes you've got here.
What you see here is a fully self-powered, sustainably powered headphone. It has a leather structure to it. Here's the solar cell is here on top, and it will actually absorb any kind of light and convert that light into electrical energy and charge the battery. You go to your office, maybe you take a walk, you sit in the office working, or you go to the gym, whatever you do, they will always charge during the day.
But the luxury of not needing conventional charging will add a chunky $50 to devices, several of which have already been created.
This is a self-powered speaker. If you look on the back side here, it's the solar cell.
A smart helmet can sense when it's worn in the dark and light up automatically.
Here are the charging panels, 1, 2 and 3. It's actually one cell underneath.
They really do blend in.
And this bag doubles up as a power bank.
This is a pretty big surface, and you can place this in the sun, so it can charge a lot.
Charging from ambient light does have its limitations though.
How about a laptop? How far away are you from being able to create that sort of power in the bag?
Well, the laptop, you know, is super power hungry.
And a phone as well, you're just not going to get enough power.
Laptops and phones, you need much stronger light, or you need a larger surface. But who's going to walk around with this large solar cell?
Something that big to charge your phone?
It's not going to happen. So it's all about finding the balance, right? What's the available surface on the product? How do you normally use the product in your daily life?
The company also thinks that an app will help users develop better charging habits by making everyone more light conscious, as they put it.
This is charge anxiety. It's the largest pain point globally in consumer electronics. So you'll see in your phone how much it charges all the time and how much it drains all the time. And you'll be able to track how you're doing, and it's sort of gamifying this.
I'm told this tech will never be put directly on smartphones because, well, leaving your smartphone out in the sunshine will never be a great idea. But this could be a step up from wireless charging for many other devices. Products like these Urbanista headphones do still have a backup charging port though, for those who just still want it there for peace of mind.
That was Lara hoping to power up with or without a bit of sunshine. Talking of which, it was the sun and sunlight which gave the visual effects team behind the movie Dune a bit of a headache. Their brief was to recreate a harsh desert planet full of sandworms and flying ships, all the while making it look realistic and grounded. Well, here's a look at some of the amazing work that went into the film.
Go, go, go!
I knew it was going to be they were going to try and ground it in reality as much as possible in a science fiction movie, but try and have it in a way where as if you were filming as if it was for real, if you see what I mean. So it's not visual effects for visual effects' sake, but visual effects to help tell the story and move the story along. And that's the type of work that I quite enjoy doing. So I knew there was going to be a lot of plate preservation needed. By that I mean, let's say for example, sand dunes were shot with a real camera. I knew that we then need to match that completely digitally to be able to put a sandworm, in this example, put a sandworm through those dunes as well. So I knew it was going to be as photoreal as we could get it.
It started almost from day one. It's like, okay, sand and the worm, and how do we make this happen and make it look 100% photoreal, and yet be able to iterate and see different versions and render it and have it to the level that IMAX shows.
One of the biggest challenges we had, sticking with sand for a minute, was the issue of scale. So in the deserts of Arrakis, there's no vegetation in there, so we didn't have that, bushes and things as scale reference for the eye to look at and know how big things were, which is good and bad. It meant that we had to have almost a full simulation of all the different grains of sand in there to make that work. So early tests that we did where the sand grains were just too big, the worm suddenly looked really small. It didn't feel imposing. It didn't feel as massive as it needed to be. So the effects team had to come up with different ways of working with that. Obviously, you can't simulate every single grain of sand in the desert. That's just not possible. So they came up with systems where you could have a representation of what it's likely to look like. And then they had several systems that they ran that would call from a library of different setups that they have to then populate some of the areas around the worm to get that feeling of, this is the desert and it is being shifted around and those sand grains are tiny. And then from those simulations as well, we had dust running off of that, which helped with the scale too. And shifting sands, some of the dunes a little bit further out from where the worm is, because as the worm moves through the ground, it's sending out vibrations and it's shifting sands to the left and right and in front of it as it moves forward.
They actually built a lot of the sets or partial sets. And so, we had real ornithopters on the set that were pulled up by cranes. And we had helicopters landing to kick up the dust so we could use it as reference to replicate. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and love in that movie. It was a very special project that everybody wanted to be there and do their best and then some. And so I think, you see that on the screen, a lot of that love for Dune is up there.
The test is simple. Remove your hand from the box and you die.
What's in the box?
Pain.
Well, that's it for Oscar-worthy films and for Click for this week. As ever, you can keep up with the team on social media. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at BBC Click. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.